I think we'll get started. If we could close the door back there, somebody. Be awesome. We're running a little bit late, and Keith has some wonderful information to share, so I want to move on and get started here. Thanks to Tom, we know, a little bit about the challenges that the world is facing, the obesity and the diseases and all that kind of stuff. And who's worried about this is really a lot of people. I mean, the inactivity that leads to all of this is concerning governments and countries and associations and federations, and especially it's rocking the sports and fitness world in general, and we're, of course, all part of that with swimming. I met our next speaker, Keith Story, a few weeks ago at the Sports Fitness Industry Summit, and that's where all the who's who among the sporting industry met to, under the umbrella of being relentlessly relevant. How can the sports and fitness industry stay relevant in today's world? And a lot of the stats that were presented there are actually created by Keith Story. He has nearly 30 years of experience in business analysis and market research, almost all of which is in the sports industry. Keith runs Sports Marketing Surveys USA Florida office, and he manages all the qualitative and quantitative research for a wide range of clients in the US. And in particular, he manages the single largest sports participation study for the Physical Activity Council. And that's the definitive source for research on sports for governing bodies, federations, associations, sports equipment manufacturers, and everyone else who is interested in what's going on in the fitness world. So please join me in welcoming Keith Story.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. 30 years, yeah, that makes me feel very, very old. But also, I think it's a bit of a reflection. I go to a lot of these events. As Lauren said, we were in New Orleans a few weeks ago. And that is a sign of our industry. The industry is aging. I go to tennis industry events, and they talk about the aging tennis pros. The average age of a club tennis pro is now 59. So I think I see this a lot. It looks like there's a lot of younger people, so that's good. So let's get on and have a look at what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to put some of those numbers in context. Tom referred to the inactivity. He also referred to aspirational swimmers, so I'll give you some more data on that. And apologies, a lot of this is going to be lots of numbers, lots of trends, lots of statistics, but that's kind of the nature of our business, and hopefully some of this will resonate with you in terms of what you can do in terms of putting programs together for your facilities. We did a study for USA Swimming last year. It was published last year, and it talked to parents of swimmers and non-swimmers about how we could get kids that just go and splash around, get them, as Tom was saying, to create these frequent swimmers, how we get the swimmers to going from recreational to avid. And then obviously a lot of discussion at the moment about millennials, and I'm going to cover their attitudes towards sports and some of the statistics from millennials and what we can do with it, and basically what happened with this project that we did for USA Swimming, what that resulted in. It was pretty much resulted in the Swim Today program and was a good example of the industry getting together and trying to drive participation. And then the conclusion's really just, it tries to draw it all together, what you can do in terms of programs and ideas that might help you stimulate your own local demand for swimming. So Lauren mentioned we do the single largest sports participation study for the Physical Activity Council. We interview over 40,000 Americans aged 6 and older each year, and it's nationally representative by age, gender, region. And we get really, really good data out of it. We track 115 or so different sports, and those are the existing partners within that program. I won't read them out, but suffice to say it's an alphabet soup, and very respectable organizations that fund that particular project. The inactivity pandemic, part of the SFIA, the Sports and Fitness Industry Association, they've invested in a program called Fit America. and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but they are really in charge of this number. So out of that PAC project, this was the 83 million people in America that are inactive. And that's not one activity. So Tom Coe from the SFIA always likes to say, these people were given a list of 100 plus activities that they could have been active in, and they selected none. So wouldn't you just lie and say you did something? But this is 83 million people do absolutely nothing. And as you can see, this has just been such a consistent trend, and this is the mega trend that Tom was talking about, just increasing inactivity. And particularly worrying within that is children are becoming increasingly inactive. So this is from 2007 to 2014. You can just see the increase in inactivity rates. And frequent participation is down. So this is, if you like, the other side of the coin is kids participating frequently. So 6 to 12s gone from 34% down to 27%. 13 to 17-year-olds have gone down, also. This is kids that were participating or physically active 3 times a week or more. I won't point out too many of these numbers, but really just these are grouped activities. So we grouped all the team sports together, we grouped all the fitness sports together, winter sports. In pretty much all of them, apart from winter sports, the 2007 to 2014 trend, that's the decline in percentage points, that's the percentage change. So all of those areas we see declining in terms of total participation. What we see through our work, and this is really sort of major causes for concern, single sports specialization, and Lauren will have seen some of the presentations at the event in New Orleans, was doctors saying that we have kids now who need Tommy John surgery because they're playing baseball year round. So they need elbow surgery, shoulder surgery. Lots more sports, they get more professional more quickly. So all of a sudden, you have to be in the team, you have to be in the travel team. And obviously those individual sports are doing that because they want people paying them money, paying them dues, paying travel, paying the coaches. So they're in business to make money, but they're encouraging kids to specialize too soon. So that's leading to overuse injuries, increasing concerns about safety, and premature burnout amongst athletes. Linked into all of that, we see decreasing school sports budgets and increasing costs to players and family, pay to play at high school. If your kid plays football in high school, you can be paying $700, $800, $900 for your kid to play sport at high school. This really fits in with what I was just saying about professionalization too quickly. Most of where we've seen the decline is in the recreational player. So kids don't go out and play sport for fun. They're super organized, and it fits in with helicopter parents. You need to be organized every hour of the day. So we've seen a drop in kids just going out to play ball, kids going out to have fun. So there's various projects working on that. Project Play from Aspen Institute and things like that are trying to attack this area where we've just seen kids just not having fun, not getting out, being active. This slide just talks to that increasing specialization. If you look at this is Gen Z. I mean, we haven't really decided what we call the people that are born after 2000. It's all about core values. Some people still include them in Millennials, but basically the kids that are born since 2000, 41% of them only do one sport. That's the highest of all those different generations that we looked at. So top 10 overall sports from our study, and I'll just jump through these fairly quickly. Walking for fitness, running, jogging, treadmill. So fitness, very, very prevalent within those top 10. This is core participation. So with core participation, we're looking at the people that do it more frequently, and typically a core participant will account for like 80 or 90% of all those participation occasions. So it gets rid of just the casual people, but it's also instructive to look at how many of these, apart from fishing are all fitness activities. So people want to be fit, people want to be healthy, and there's some big numbers of people doing it at a regular level, at a core basis. This is 5-year annual growth, so from 2009 to 2014. Now, you've got to bear in mind, and people talk about, stand-up paddleboarding, lacrosse. Jumped ahead. Lacrosse is in there, stand-up paddleboarding, adventure racing, triathlon, and a lot of those from a really small basis. So rugby is doing very well, but it's starting at 720,000. These are in thousands. So when you hear people talking about how these sports are doing really well, quite often it's because they've started from a really small base. On the flip side of that, if you to look at baseball, football, all the major team sports, we see those have been declining, and those are where the big numbers of participants really are. So now moving on to fitness. Swimming. Swimming for fitness. We saw pretty good increases. So from 2011, we haven't got pre-2011, we changed slightly the way we tracked swimming. USA Swimming asked us to split out swimming on a team, so we have a swimming on a team number as well, and we started recording that in 2011. But since 2011, some good increases from 21.5 million up to 26.5. Quite a good increase, and typically, even on our previous measure, we saw every post-Olympic year we would see an increase in swimming. So swimming goes up and then dropped back down a little bit in 2014, and then it's just also interesting to note more females fitness swimming, but getting a little bit closer in 2014. So male fitness swimming participation had increased at a faster rate than female fitness swimming participation. And the reason for that drop, what we like to call the leaky bucket, you'll have seen that we went from 26.4 to 25.3, churn rate of 18.5. So we actually lost 4.9 million swimmers, but only gained 3.8 million. So 3.8 million out, 3.8 million in, 4.9 million out, lead to 25.3 million, a net drop of 1.1 million. I'm going to skip through these fairly quickly. Good thing about swimming is it's all ages. Fitness swimming, as you can see, 50% age 25 to 54. Under 25 is nearly 30% of swimmers. So all ages do swimming for fitness. South Atlantic, over-indexes, index of 109, and college graduates. So people with a college degree and a postgraduate degree, much more likely. So college graduates about 16% more likely to swim for fitness, postgrads about 12% more likely. Just looking at the core participation, so these are the people that account for about 90% of swimming occasions. We've got about 9 million. Again, we saw the drop from 2013 to 2014, but still quite a bit higher than we had in 2011. What we see as we saw from the previous chart, over-indexing for females, so females are a little bit more likely to be a core fitness swimmer, and affluent households indexing really pretty highly. Again, South Atlantic college graduates, similar to total swimmers. This is core swimmers again. Swimming on a team, I won't dwell too much on swimming on a team, but we have actually seen consistent growth in swimming on a team. We didn't see any drop back in 2014 that we saw with fitness swimmers. So some pretty good news there, although obviously the numbers there are quite a lot lower than total fitness swimmers. Just point this out because this has got implications in terms of comparing swimming with other sports. The green line there is soccer. So the peak participation age for soccer is 6, and then it goes downhill from there. So that gives soccer its own sort of issues. It really also talks to, all of a sudden around age 7, they have to be selected for the team. So they're not giving these kids a good experience. They're playing at age 6, and then they drop out. This is swimming on a team, which is obviously a little bit lower in terms of total participants, but very, very consistent across the ages. So that actually shows, once you've got the kids in a team, they're having a pretty good time. Retention rates are really pretty good. So let's have a look at the aspirational swimmers. This is the updated chart from what Tom showed earlier. But these are the people that don't currently swim, but say they would like to do fitness swimming. And this is in all the different age groups, age 6 to 12, 13 to 17. And in all of these age groups, swimming for fitness is the number 1 or number 2 aspirational sport. And then we go to the older age groups, 35 up to 65 plus. Hiking still in there, Tom. So, but yeah, people want to do it. It's attractive, very keen. If we do total numbers, we can convert that to total numbers. There's about 18 million people that don't currently swim for fitness that say they would like to. So this is the latent demand out there. It may only be 6% of all the people that are out there, but it's a lot of people. Good potential. And we do this for a lot of other sports. And as you saw, if 1 or 2 for all those different age groups, it's a significant number of people. Very well spread across the different age groups. 60% are female though, so again, more interested amongst females than males. 60-40. Still pretty affluent, but across all age groups. Again, swimming for fitness, you can do it all age, any age. Look at the generations. Not a huge amount of difference, but we're ranging from sort of 6% up to 8%. But the kids, still say they're interested in fitness or swimming. Then millennials, lowest interest really amongst the boomers. So let's go on and look at this study that we did for USA Swimming. This was a mixture of qualitative and quantitative information. We did a quantitative study with parents of swimmers aged 6 to 14 and parents of non-swimmers, but we also did some in-depth poolside interviews. We did some here in Phoenix, we did some in Denver, and we're talking to parents of rec swimmers, and we're talking to parents of club swimmers. So this is, I don't know if you can read the individual sports down the side of the back, but this is how important when selecting sports for your child are each of the following. And it's on a 1 to 5 scale. So right at the top, it's got to be fun, it's got to be safe. It'd be great if it could increase our child's self-confidence, if it instills discipline. So a lot of these are things that we know swimming gives to kids. Down at the bottom, become an Olympian. It's not really that important that I'm a fan of it. At that point, I'm not really concerned about potential scholarship. Doesn't necessarily have to be fun for the parents, although some of the qual comments later, actually kind of contradict that, but we should look at that in a minute. So it's got to be fun, it's got to be safe. And this really is, from a swimming's point of view, is really quite an issue, and it's a bit of a challenge. Non-swimming households are less active across the board. So in the dark blue, we've got non-swimmers aged 6 to 14, and in the light green, we've got swimmers. So about 30% of swimmers aged 6 to 14 say they also do basketball. And then we've got soccer, running, jogging, baseball. But look how different the non-swimmers are. And then down here, this is the 44% of the non-swimmers do no other sport. So it's coming from that environment of being a very inactive household. And part of another challenge is the difference in household income. So swimming households, average income, $78,000. Non-swimming households, $68,000. So big difference in terms of income there. So that's a challenge for swimming. I just picked out another couple of slides here that showed this is the parents' swimming experience. So non-swimmers, so this is non-swimming households, 35% of their parents never learn or can't swim, compared to just parents even of recreational swimmers who only 13% never learned to swim. And 53% of current non-swimmers have never learned to swim. This is the kids aged 6 to 14. So what were the reasons for your child not learning to swim? And this is just the parents of those who had never swam. No access to a pool, so there's a bit of potential issue there that they don't know anywhere locally that they can swim. Too expensive, but that's only 20-25% of people. And then some of the other things that I think people worry about: swimming pools are intimidating, not welcoming. People that should read people at the pool don't speak my language. So those don't really appear to be so much of an issue as expense, too difficult to learn. But the number one by quite a long way was no access to a pool. And then what benefits would make you consider involving your child in swimming? This is, again, the parents have never swam. It's got to be fun, life-saving skill, so that's important, improves physical skills, and increases self-confidence. That's really the four main reasons there. And then we asked them, how interested would you be in any of these programs that would encourage your child to get your child involved in swimming? And this is against the parents of those who had never swam. Free introductory private lesson, free introductory group lesson, stood out from the others. Even things like a free swimsuit when sign up wasn't as important as those top two, which is really giving people free lessons and free group lessons, free individual and free group lessons. So this is the parents of rec swimmers. So these are kids that already swim, they can swim, but they're really just splashing around in the pool, and we're asking them about, what would it take to get your kids to consider swimming? And this was the reasons they would not consider a swim team for the child. Prefer other sports, no access to a pool, too expensive, so those two come out again. And then we ran some of these programs by them again to see what would help them, encourage them to join a swim club. Swimming lessons to improve technique, fun swim events with less competition. And then this was quite interesting because it was part of when we did the qualitative interviews that we'll see in a minute, there was quite a big difference, and some of the parents were worried about it's an awful lot of commitment. So the time commitment, and you can see this would be swim team once or twice a week compared to 5 days a week. So there's a slight element there about people being afraid of the time commitment to sign kids up on a swim team. This is an attitudinal study, attitudinal question. We compared swimming to a number of different sports. In the blue line, we've got the average of all other sports that we measured, and we asked them, which of these sports do you associate with the following attributes? And we did health and fitness, teamwork, social, fun, easy, enjoy as a parent, so easy location, so somewhere easy to get to, enjoy as a parent, easy, cool, and future financial benefit. So non-swimming parents gave swimming low ratings for team, social, and cool. So quite considerably different in terms of their attitudes towards other sports. But once you get once the parents get their kids involved in swimming, swimming outperformed other sports in all other areas apart from teamwork. So look how different the measures are for swimming against the average of all sports. This is again just a sort of, this not a workout, great workout, and you'll see the different sort of attributes there, but parents of non-swimmers. So really the key point there is there's some indication limited access to pools, and pools may be a little bit intimidating for people who haven't been used to going there. From the qualitative research, so this was the in-depth interviews that we did poolside. Summer rec leagues are a safe starting point for almost all club swimmers. So they were very good in terms of the pipeline. So a very high number of the kids that we were interviewing at the swim team had started through summer rec leagues. Swimming lets children see relative quick improvement. So even with kids that had only been going to swim club for about a week, they were already saying their kids had improved, they'd done the times, their kids were getting on much better. It increased self-confidence, self-esteem and focus. Lots of comments about improved their time management, organization skills, makes kids smarter. They've improved about setting goals and meeting goals and discipline. Learning how to win and lose gracefully is really pretty important. And both short and long-term benefits that we found from talking to the parents. And swimming is objective, which eliminates a lot of crazy parents. We're getting a lot of comments about, and we'll see some in a minute, parents aren't up in the referee's grill like they are and rows on the touch lines. You don't get that. You don't, compared to, soccer parents or lacrosse parents, whatever other sport it is. Amazing exercise, lots of input about, it's great, it wears my kids out, nothing else does that. Swimming is hard work, but it's also fun. These are just some of the verbatim comments. I don't know if you can read those at the back. There was a natural progression from learning how to swim to joining a team. Swimming has done something for them that other sports do not. Ownership, determination, and given them something to reach for. Swimming is all about your time. In soccer, it's all about playing time. Parents here aren't as crazy, not as up in the coach's face. It's all about the time. In other sports, the focus on beating the other kids. Here it's about challenging yourself. I like that she exercises regularly, and it's a lot more exercise than soccer. I love that it exhausts them. Through swimming, they get a better workout, plus swimmers do better in school and learn to focus more, and it's fun. Swimming is more inclusive to let all kids realize their potential. Nobody's sitting on the bench. So all those sort of benefits that you probably know would come out really clearly in the research. And we'll try and round that up a little bit at the end and talk about how this impacted the Swim Today program. But let's have a quick look at millennials. Do we have any millennials? So this is the 85 million people who are aged 15 to 35. So we've got a few, okay, good. I have millennial daughters, so that, again, just shows how old I am. But let's see if some of these hit home. It's we think, not me think. The previous generation, Generation X, who we've probably got some of those, was all about me. So a lot of the activities they were involved in were very self-focused, very individual-focused. Interested in new and outside-the-box ideas. It's the most over-parented generation we've seen. Extended adolescence. Take longer to move out of the parental home. My daughters are both at university at the moment, but they're probably going to come back and haunt me. We're thinking of moving and not telling them where we've moved to. But they have a social conscience, so they do actually respond to cause-related marketing. Are social, love to meet in groups, use affinity apps such as Meetup and Tinder. Are indecisive, have short attention spans. Very relevant to my daughters. They do respect their elders though, so that's good. And old business models are not relevant. I think that's very important for a lot of sports. Tennis, golf. We've never really changed the way we do things. So at a tennis club, you're expected to join a club. You're expected to play, you get signed up to play on a team on a Thursday night, or you get signed up to play at the same time every Saturday, 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. And golf's very, very similar. Millennials don't really want to do that. They want to do different things. They want to have variety. All fits into the short attention span, always wanting something different. So the events that we've seen that have been very successful, there should be a final bullet point there that says they like craft beer. So if you see some of the events that have been really successful, like color runs, paint runs, there's even keg and runs where you run for 1K and then drink, then run for another K and have another drink. And so, but it's all about doing it in a team. It's all about things that are important. It's all about taking your photograph and putting it onto Snapchat or Instagram. Facebook, the kids don't use anymore. It's all their parents that use Facebook. So something constantly different. So they might do a 5K or a color run one week, then they might get the group together the following week to do a pub crawl. So, but it's just keeping things different, keeping things changed up. And that's got a lot of implications in terms of expecting people to sign up for a swim program or a swim team that's 8 weeks long every Saturday. Or, commit yourself to, they don't want to commit themselves to too many things to commit that length of time and do the same thing over and over again. So anybody got any programs that involve swimming and drinking? So hopefully not at the same time, because the health and safety people would probably object to that, but maybe drinking after swimming might be the way to go. This is participation by age, and it's quite interesting. This is all the millennials in here. This is swimming on a team. And there's various peaks. There's sort of a bit of a peak in college. There's a bit of a peak at the end of high school. But this is fitness swimming. So really pretty consistent across all age groups, various peaks and troughs, but pretty good. And if you compare that with running, which really shows how swimming is very consistent across all age groups, whereas running dies off. What was your statistic earlier, Tom, that runners die earlier? So they're all dying once they get to 46. So much better in terms of longevity and being able to do it for a long time. I'll skip that one. Skip those two. And this actually also, I think, fits in terms of ideas of programming and different things you can do for the millennial generation. This is what fitness swimmers do other than swim. So really high percentage run, walk for fitness, treadmill, free weights, cycling, weight resistance machines, stretching, hiking. So a lot of fitness activities in there, yoga. So just some ideas in terms of some additional things you might do. And actually tennis is reasonably high amongst the millennials in terms of overlap between swimming for fitness. And that sort of speaks to this a little bit. This is from IHRSA, the Health and Racket and Sports Club Association. When they surveyed their clubs in 2005, 36% had an indoor pool. When they did in 2015, 47% had an indoor pool. Outdoor pool has not increased quite so much, but it's gone from 24 to 26. So if you look at the success of health and fitness chains like Lifetime Fitness, they're putting in pools, they're putting in tennis courts, they're putting in a whole range of things to give a great variety of things for their members to do. So it's not just about the swimming, it's not just about the tennis, it's you can do swimming one week, yoga the next week, basket weaving the next week, whatever it is, but there's a great variety of things to do. And that's very focused on the sort of millennial generation that are joining their clubs. So has anybody signed up for the Swim Today program in the last couple of years? I would play you the videos, but we haven't got an internet connection. So certainly visit swimtoday.org and look at the resources that are available there. It really came out of the research we did for them. And it does focus on the kids. It focuses on trying to get them to go from being a rec swimmer to joining a team. And the call to action is visit swimtoday.org and find a club. So type in, the very first page you land on is not about how great USA Swimming is or how great any of the organizations are. It's just a box to enter your zip code, find a swim club. So if you've got swim clubs at your facilities that haven't used it, haven't signed up, certainly worth encouraging them to do so. And they do quite a lot of tracking in terms of, did it generate interest? Did it create leads? Did it get qualified leads? Did people join a team? And I won't dwell on these, but those are in the presentation. I think the presentations are going to be available online to download. So if you want to look at any of these, you can see them there. But suffice to say that in 2015, they saw a 20% increase over 2014, and they've exceeded 48% conversion, just from general interest to being a qualified lead. So, it's good that they're measuring it. Have they got everything right with the program? Probably not, but I think they're paying quite a lot of effort in terms of trying to improve it through time. And this shows their members, and actually interesting to note the boost in a post-Olympic year, and then dropping back down a little bit in 2014. So that really sort of matches what we've seen in terms of swim team participation. So, conclusions. I think the challenges are, the benefits of swimming club membership are unknown by most parents of rec swimmers. They're only learned through experience. Time commitment is a challenge, but only seen once participation begins. Non-swimmer households are not as active. Sports is not a way of life. So that's, I think, a big, big challenge, and it fits in with the bigger picture of increasing inactivity. So trying to get swimmers out of households where there's no one active. Some perceptions of lack of access to pools, and in non-swimming households, swimming is not seen as cool, social, or building teamwork. Getting to non-swimming parents is a challenge, as the most typical route to swim clubs is through other parents. So if you're in those circles where other parents are taking their kids to swim team, that's great. But if you're not in those circles, it's difficult to get that word of mouth going. And for a sport to advertise, there was an advertising budget for Swim Today, but for any sport, we deal with tennis, we deal with skiing, we deal with golf. Even if they have a big advertising budget, which they see as a big advertising budget, really just only a splash in the ocean against all the big advertisers, all the automotive advertising, all the insurance advertising, all the Geico advertising, much, much bigger budget. So, it's difficult to go out and create a different image for a sport. The real way is word of mouth and getting through other parents. And really the challenge for millennials is old business models are no longer relevant. But there's certainly lots of opportunities. I think, as Tom said, there's a lot of kids that want to swim. There's a lot of adults that want to swim. So focus on the positive, focus on the fun. Some are rec leagues. So once kids are signed up to do other sports, just make sure you can introduce them to swimming as well. Focus on both the short and long-term benefits of joining a club. And for millennials, it's, focus on the social, focus on the experience. Connectivity, tracking devices. There's lots of devices which will track how many laps you've done. But anything that can encourage them to take part, have fun, do it socially, and then post onto Instagram or Snapchat with the picture is really the way to go. And make sure there's plenty of variety. Otherwise, millennials get bored pretty quickly. I think that's it. Went through that fairly quickly. Hopefully there weren't too many stats and numbers, but I've got a fly buzzing around. Happy to take questions. Any thoughts or comments?
Hold on one second. Thank you, Keith, by the way.
Pleasure.
I just had a question on some of the earlier slides where you were showing the increase in participation, and I don't remember exactly which ones they were, but you were showing like 23 million to 25 million, but over several years. But it didn't give a percentage, so I didn't know if it was taking into account the increase in population growth. I mean, so I didn't know how to quantify that.
Great question. Yeah, that was the total number of participants. Participation rate, we've got that separately, but I think the average annual growth for swimming over that period was about 4%, and the population's growing at about 1%. So it is growing a little bit ahead of population growth is the answer.
Keith, thank you. Keith, you mentioned Swim Today, and one of the issues with people enrolling was access and being able to find a pool, or access as part being able to find a pool and thus access. Could you speak a little bit about what Swim Today is doing to be able to help make it easier for people to find swim programs?
Right. Yeah, so that's the very first thing on their website is find a find a local team, find a local pool. I think that the thing that I think in talking to them that frustrates, there's no national real database of swim pools and swim facilities that's, I've spoken to, and his name just escapes me at USA Swimming, the guy who has the database, but there's not really an all-singing, all-dancing database of, so it's the facilities and the teams have to sign up to get their club focused on that, to get them on that list so that they come up on a search. But swimming's not unusual in that. There's no national database of baseball fields, there's no national database of football fields. So it's certainly something that needs addressed, and I've had a couple of conversations with them, but it's kind of difficult because it's dependent on the facilities themselves, making sure they're on that database.
Hi, Keith. As I listened to all this today, one of the things that struck me was the idea that it's difficult to get there, difficult to juggle. There are maybe multiple amounts of children in a household. You've got a lot of things to have to take into account for the time periods and everything else. Plus, just the simple psychographic of the whole thing. I want to be on a team. I want to win. I want to get a trophy. I want to be social, any aspect of that, versus the people that have the ability to find a pool, have the time to use a pool, and have the aspiration to use that pool for health reasons, which really is the baby boomer generation that would look at this and say, you know what, I can't lift weights anymore, I can't run to 3 miles a day, I'm not going to play on a football team, but I do have the time, and I have been looking for something that can increase my physical activity without being tough on my joints or any of the other things. So as I looked at this today, I said, this is a big rock to move based on the hurdles all around it. Whereas the people like myself who grew up swimming and enjoyed it and already have that, it's almost come back to swimming and a generational idea of, wow, like I just started swimming again maybe 7-8 months ago because I know the benefits and I'm like, yeah, I can't run. I can't go out there and run 5 miles or 3 miles. So my question to you is focus overall, and this is one aspect of it, but I assume you guys are focusing on the other end that says, yeah, you know what, when I get to be 50 years old, I want to be like dad or mom because they're swimming and look how great they look, or something to that effect.
Well, I think that's right, but I think there's there's not one solution that fits all the different age groups. I think the USA Today the Swim Today program was very much focused on those 6 to 14-year-olds. I've talked a lot about millennials because there's 85 million of those, but you're right. There's also the baby boomers, and that probably needs a different approach. It's not something that I think that I've seen at USA Swimming or any of the organisations that focuses necessarily on those. But swimming, as you saw from some of those numbers, participation in swimming for fitness is pretty good across all the age groups. But I think the millennial focus is probably right because they do have disposable income. They're not quite yet involved in paying for their kids' college and things like that, like people of my age. But so I think the idea really, and what we try and do as marketers is, how do we message to these different groups? So a message for millennials is going to be, because of their different core values, is going to be different to the message that we do to baby boomers.
I'd just like to share something. I was spent the last couple days with a fellow named Adolf Kiefer. I don't know if many of you know about him, but he's been a legend involved with water safety programs. He was a 36 Olympic champion. He's now 98. And the last 2 days, he gets up at 8 o'clock and gets in his pool. He can't walk any longer, but he can walk in the water. But we were discussing this topic, and I would just want to share his comments. And I agree with everything he said. we're making a big mistake promoting swimming as a sport. And he believes it should be an essential life skill for every elementary school kid, that they can't take the time out to away from the academics. There may be nothing more important that they ever learn in their life than to learn to swim. So when we're positioning this, and particularly within the underserved minority communities, and trying to, with the Hispanic kids and African American kids, and telling them that this is a better sport than football and basketball and soccer, we're not going to get anywhere. But he thinks that we've got to bring back what happened, and historically, I run the Swimming Hall of Fame, and historically, the white population didn't swim. And there was a requirement, no one knows why there was a requirement for swimming to be part of your degree graduating from high schools and colleges, but it was because not to be a sport, but to save your life. And the purpose of education is to prepare you for life, and a healthy and safe life. And he believes, and I absolutely agree, we've got to go find some school districts, some schools that are willing to make this a requirement to get out of elementary school, not high school. We're building high schools for swim teams. I'll give you a perfect example. In Fort Lauderdale, Florida, one of the high schools built a swim pool, magnificent swim pool. They can't use it during the day for students because it's across the street. This is, believe me, it's incredible. They spent $5.5 million building this pool. It is only there, and the argument is so that the high school could have a swim team. So you've got it's a largely minority school. 80% of the kids don't know how to swim. They can't do it during the school hours to teach them to swim, and it's used for a swimming team. Instead, we should be building small teaching pools that are warm temperature, not 78 degrees, warm temperature, where we can make it mandatory to kids to learn to swim and prepare themselves for life. And when you're looking at the inactivity, as Adolf Kiefer has always said, since I've known him for 30 years, swimming provides you a passport and access to 28 other aquatic activities to get you off your butt and off the couch, from water skiing to scuba diving, body surfing, snorkeling, and all that stuff. So when we're going out and we're trying to convince people to join this as a sport, and it's the funnest sport, believe me, it's not the funnest sport. If you want Rowdy Gaines, you ask Rowdy Gaines, it's grueling. It's a sport. All sports at that level are grueling, but what it does do is, as you were saying, you've been out of swimming for a long time, you come back to it. And the water, it's not just swimming, it's the water, it's aquatic exercise and all these things, and we ought to be educating our kids to enjoy 2/3 of the planet. And somewhere we've got to focus and try and get that one school district that's going to make it a requirement, or whatever it is. But it's got to be that swimming is an essential life skill. The Romans used to say that you were uneducated if you couldn't read nor swim, not read nor write. And that's what swimming's about. It was this modern idea that it's a sport is something relatively new. And if we're going to get people to swim, we've got to get them to swim for the right reasons. So.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot in that. I think, Tom, you were saying that there was a district in California that was making swimming compulsory for 3rd grade.
And we are going to touch upon that with Doug. Actually, creating water lovers is age dependent as well, and even elementary school is a little bit too old for that. I mean, you have to do it before the age 5, and you'll hear more about that as we talk about the consumers and what's affecting their behavior.
There are some districts that are doing that. I know in your current home district, there used to be more active swimming. Now it's like a water safety thing, which means don't swim, and unfortunately. There are still about 5 universities that require swim tests, but that number's gone down dramatically. And that's certainly an opportunity, but as Lauren pointed out, getting them younger is better. And that's where usually it becomes a lifelong thing and proficient. So anything we do to be able to help encourage them, obviously a good thing. One of the things on Swim Today, and Keith, you're right, there's no national database, but just for everyone in the room, USA Swimming's database is not too shabby. They have hundreds or thousands, tens of thousands of clubs, and I just plugged in Swim Today on my phone while we're sitting here, and within 5 miles there's 4 swim programs that you can enroll in. So if you have friends, or you're tweeting or blogging or communicating to your stakeholders, just go to Swim Today, plug in your zip code, or it'll find you, and it'll find you a local swim program.
Keith, why don't you talk a little bit about the Fit America and the Fit Act in particular? And I do have
Sure.
pamphlets that can explain all about this, but this is an initiative by the Sports Fitness Industry Association that's really in a legislative
Yeah, so-
legislative attack, I guess, to get people swimming.
So the SFIA is part of what they do really well there. They're based in Washington. They're a lobbying organization. So they've been lobbying for the FIT Act with personal health investment, and the idea is to get HSAs, health savings accounts, eligible for any spend on fitness and sport. So it would include admission to a swimming facility. It would include your swimming club dues. It would include anything that's very specific to sport. So it would include cleated footwear, but it wouldn't include just sort of training shoes. But basically, golf club membership, tennis membership, all of that would be able to be eligible for pre-tax dollars. So they're very well advanced in terms of getting this through. They've got a lot of support in both Congress and the Senate, and the House and the Senate. But more details on that, certainly go to sfia.org. They've got a link which can just put you through to lobby your local House of Representative member or a local senator. And we haven't really seen anybody come up with an idea to say, well, that's not a good idea, because basically if there's that tax incentive to do it, then it will certainly help, and lots of promotions in and around it, towards the end of the year. Don't forget to spend your tax-free dollars on. So the sports industry is pretty much behind it, and it looks like it will be, they say the next 6 months are really going to be kind of critical in getting that through. But it's a really good program, and Lauren's certainly got some more details
Yes,
on
and I do have information. You can pick it up when you leave. Any other questions for Keith?
I'm going to be around all day, so if you've got any other thoughts or comments, please let me know.
Thank you very much.